I'm a nobody from nowhere that ain't never done nothing. That's what I am. An old head. These young coaches, I tell you what, I can't figure these jokers out. They got a backpack on and tight something. I don't know what they're doing. They're getting on my nerves. I can tell you that. I know what ain't in the backpack. A string and a let me paint that line for you. That ain't in there. That's for sure. I had a kid the other day. He said, "Hey, coach, didn't Christopher Columbus write the Pledge of Allegiance?" I said he sure did. He also played quarterback for the 1985 Chicago Bears. He said, bet. That happened. Sun Coaches, Season 6, where coaches come and tell their stories. Some of them are funny. Some of them is going to help you in your coaching journey. Not everybody has a funny story, but everybody has a story. Hope you enjoy Sun Coaches, brought to you by Titan Sensor. Sun Coaches is proud to partner with Titan Sensor for Season 6 and 7. Titan is made in the USA, proudly founded and based in Texas. When you connect with Titan, you are not alone. You can collaborate and share templates with other coaches across the country to build reports and foster competition. Used by programs such as State 6A Georgia State champion Grayson High School, Titan can tailor a package to fit your needs. The eye in the sky never lies. Improve your team's performance with Titan. Welcome to Sun Coaches Podcast, Season 6, and today I'm excited to be joined by the head coach of Cass High School, Coach Steve Gates. Thanks for being on with me.
Hey, Chris, how are you? I'm good, man. I'm excited about this.
Doing good. Well, Coach, just like I do with everybody, tell us where you actually grew up and went to high school.
Actually, first year of high school, fortunate to play 1 year of high school in Texas and right outside of Houston, so I got a little taste of that. And then in 1987, moved over here to Georgia. My dad actually started Glock Incorporated, ironically, here in Smyrna, Georgia, and that's what got us over here. And he searched around for a few schools to bring me over to, and he picked a good one when he picked McEachern. So I was fortunate enough to come over here and get to play for Coach Dorsey at McEachern.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to try to get him on Season 7. I'm going to do a Legends 2. I did Legends in Season 5, and Coach Herron sent me a text the other day. He was like, "Hey, how about Coach Dorsey?" I was like, yes.
Yeah,
he's definitely a legend.
He is a legend, and him and Coach Herron are, my dad's number one, but Coach Dorsey and Coach Herron are 2 and 3 in my life as far as influential people. So I still talk to them today. They're incredible people.
So did you just play? Well, probably not always ask this, but were you just a football guy, or did you play other sports when you were in high school?
No, actually, speaking of him, Coach Herron was the track coach at McEachern and made me do track. And then at the time, McEachern's wrestling was really good. I think they won 5, 6, 7 straight state titles with Coach Pritz. And they talked me into going out for wrestling for a couple of years. So I actually did, 3 sports. I think my senior year, I did not do either track or wrestling. I just did football. I had committed to Georgia at the time, and kind of looking back, regretted some of it because you think you're 6 foot tall and bulletproof, and I didn't take advantage of those things to do in high school.
So you did play more than just one thing, which is something kids these days starting to specialize, a little bit different from when we were coming up.
Absolutely. And ironically, I went out for baseball, and because, back in the youth days, I thought I was pretty good, on the bump, throwing fastballs and curveballs and all that stuff. So I went out for McEachern's baseball team my senior year. Hadn't played in 4 years, 5 years, thinking I was just going to go out there and get it done, and a couple football coaches, Coach Joyner and a couple other guys were football and baseball coaches, so they knew me and whatnot. And I get me a pair of royal blue cleats, spikes, like I'm fixing to play the whole season and all this stuff, and go out there a few tryouts, and I got humbled really, really quick. The game had passed me by, and I went and looked on Coach Rowland's door where he posted the cut list, and boy, there I was, just cut like nobody's business, and so I had me a brand new pair of blue spikes that never got worn. My mom still today gives me a hard time about that, but I tried baseball in high school, but no, just track. And of course, track was just shot and disc. It was more for the conditioning and back then the plyometrics and all that type of stuff that Coach Herron got us into.
So after high school, on to Georgia, huh?
On to Georgia. I made it, like we're talking about, passing some of this wisdom on to the younger kids. I canceled all my other official visits, and it's actually, it's OV time right now, the June OV, and talking to some of my kids at Cass and stuff. And it's one of those things that I regret. Bunch of us went to Georgia on that first weekend in January. Paul Taylor and David Weeks and a bunch of those guys, we all went over there, and we all committed on that weekend, and we all ended up canceling. I canceled an OV to Oklahoma and OV to NC State with Coach Kane and all those things that I didn't get to experience, which I wish I would have looking back now. But that's kind of how it panned out. We big group of us linemen picked Georgia that weekend with Eric Zier. His was, of course, kind of hush-hush because he was hoity-toity quarterback, and those things are treated a little bit different. But us just fat linemen, we could commit and make it public. So got to go play at Georgia for a while and enjoyed that, and made, obviously some experiences that not many people get to experience, and play in front of, 90 to 100,000 people and meet some great friends. And, it was a great experience.
Man, that's awesome. My son's a real big Georgia fan, and I try to take him every year to one game. And, I've had a couple of kids that were fortunate enough to be able to play at Georgia, and just that atmosphere and going. And I took my dad. He'd never actually been to a Georgia game, and we took him a few years back, and he was like, "Man, if I had the money, I'd come up here every weekend that they play." So,
oh yeah.
So I can't imagine what it's like as a player. It's just, as a fan, it's so much fun to sit up there. I mean, it's not so much fun when you're a coach and you're sitting up there amongst the GP, but it's still pretty fun to see all the tradition. And I mean, not just obviously at Georgia, but, any college that has all the little traditions and things they do is pretty cool. I can't imagine what it's like, or what it was like to be a player, to play in that atmosphere.
Yeah, no, it was fun. And, still got friends 30, 35 years later that we stay in touch with. And it's just like yesterday, it's just when we see each other at golf tournaments or gatherings or Georgia games or Braves games, it's a hug that you don't forget, just because of the amount of time and stuff you spent with them. And, just the experiences, like I talk about OVs. Here's a little quick story for you. I think it was probably 2 years ago, Sokovie White, one of my receivers, was getting recruited by Georgia, who is there now. And Coach Smart flew his helicopter into Cass, and it was a big deal because that had not happened before in 75 years school history, to have Coach Smart on campus with his helicopter and stuff. So we kind of did it up right. We had barbecue catered in, and the big conference room up front, and there's all the administration and counselors, and even some county people were in the room. So there's probably 20, 25 people in this room, and we're just chumming it up. We're just eating and cutting it up. And I may have even had a couple other players in there, not just Sokovie. There may have been a couple other guys in there, but Coach Smart kind of gets the room. He kind of gets the attention. He says, I gotta tell y'all something that he looked to my principal, and he's like, I gotta give you a little information on your head coach here. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Because I've known, Coach Smart for the same amount of time, 30, 35 years. And Coach Smart proceeds to tell everybody in that room that I was his host. I knew I was his host on his official visit, but he was explaining it to the people in the room that I was his host. And on his official visit on that Saturday night, apparently, I don't recall this, Chris, but apparently me and my group, we gave Coach Smart a sack of crystals and a Gatorade and put him on a couch at an apartment and said, "We'll be back later to pick you up," and never went back to pick him up.
Oh, no.
And so here's the head coach of Georgia right now, obviously, arguably one of the best college coaches ever. And he explains that he was just a little bitty old kid from Bainbridge, Georgia, and Coach Goff at the time probably just said, "Hey, don't worry about that kid. We need to make sure we sign these other kids, so make sure they're taken care of." So he claims that I left him on the couch, and of course the room erupted. It was hilarious, and Coach Smart, the way he talks and tells stories was pretty funny, but. I gave that man a sack of crystals and a Gatorade on his official visit, and said we'll be back later, and never showed back up till the morning to pick him up, I guess. So, no, those were good times, And the same thing with Coach Bobo. I saw him at our spring game at East Paulding last week, and just the times that we had together and stuff in the early '90s. There was just stuff you just never forget. You just you create that bond that's. It's hard to break, regardless of what happens in your life or where you go, what you do, what career path you take. It always falls back to those 5 o'clock winter workouts on, outside and pushing sleds and late nights and literally coming in from going out to go to those 5 o'clock workouts. And it's 3:45 and you're at a bar and you're like, "Hey, heck, boys, we'll just go straight to Butts-Mehre and crank it up at 5 with Coach Casey." So just a lot of fun times, man. A lot of fun times.
So did you know all along you were going to coach, or did you go to major in something else and ended up getting in the wrong line?
Yep. Actually, my father was a state trooper up north in North Dakota, South Dakota for 15 years. So I had always, and again, like I said, Gaston Glock had asked him to start Glock in America in 1987. So we had always been around, just law enforcement and hunting and fishing and firearms and whatnot. And so I did my degree in criminal justice, thinking that I was going to follow in my dad's steps and go be a state trooper and blah, blah, blah. But just at the time, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to go be a police officer and make $30,000 a year and get shot at and whatnot. So I had a buddy and went into a different field of construction sales and was in that for almost 13 years and did fairly well at it. It was a good time to people were building and we were making a lot of money, and it was local. I didn't have to travel. I wasn't like a regional sales guy. I was just a local sales guy working around Metro Atlanta, occasionally Augusta or Macon or whatnot. But it was just, there was enough construction around Atlanta that we made good money. And so I was in construction sales for 13 years, and I was in a dugout. I actually coached a travel East Cobb baseball team for 5 years. Nobody knows that. That's kind of a side secret. that somebody told me I coached 368 games, which sounds about right. It seemed like 1,000, but that's how many it was. But I was sitting in a dugout in Cincinnati, Ohio, again at one of these like 11 or 12-year-old travel tournaments. And one of my assistant coaches was the principal at North Cobb High School, Dr. Philip Page. And his son was on my team. And he just made a comment to me. He's like, "Coach Gates, you're just different with kids. You've got a knack with them. I've never seen it before." And blah, kind of tooted my horn a little bit. And I didn't know if he was trying to get me to play his son more or not, but his son was actually my starting second baseman, so I didn't think that was it. But he was just talking about how I had a seventh sense of dealing with kids. And he was like, "You need to come, coach and be around kids more." And I was like, I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio in a dugout. on a Saturday with kids that aren't mine, I think I'm putting my time in. He was like, no, I'm talking about being an educator, like being a teacher, being in the classroom. And so, I said, okay, we'll give it, we'll talk about it, whatever. We finish out, and I go back and talk to my wife at the time, and we had a good conversation of it. And she was, if you didn't know this, a lot of people do. I'll mention it. It's Chris. Her name is Kristen Gates, and she's been on Atlanta radio for the last 30 years. She started out in Star 94 and has been on 94.9 The Bull now for I think 15 years probably. But she was doing very well in her career at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, if you want to go chase a dream, go chase it." So she was awesome enough to let me go do that, and I got into education in 2010, and kind of never looked back. I wanted to be a head coach. Uh, Being an assistant coach or a coordinator was never what I wanted to do. If I was going to make this career change, I was going to be a head coach, and um, so I went on at North Cobb. Coach Queen let me on. A little side story there was it was I was kind of thrown at him by Dr. Page, the principal, like, hey, Coach Queen, here's you a coach. He's going to be in the building, and Coach Queen was gracious enough to take me on, and he said, okay, you'll go ahead and go do the freshman offensive line for us. I said, okay. So we go through the song and dance and get ready for practice or whatever, and I go work the freshman offensive line, and it took one day, and Coach Queen comes to me. He says, "Okay, you're different. You don't need to be down here with them. You're that advanced type of thing. I need you to go ahead because at the time he was doing the varsity offensive line, and as the head coach, and he said, I want you to come up and be the varsity offensive line coach." So it took me one day of showing him what I could do with the freshmen, and he brought me up, and that kind of rest is history. It kind of took off from there, and here I am,
How long
15
were
years
you?
later.
How long were you at North Cobb?
7 years. Was at North Cobb 2010 uh, to 2016, 6.5 years, however, whatever the half dates of leaving there. And that was kind of a situation where, like I said, I didn't get into this to be a position coach. So I was offensive line coach, and Coach Tom Clark was the OC there, and he was really, really good, really good. Still today, I call him about stuff. I mean, he's sharp. So um, he wasn't going anywhere, and I'd wanted some more responsibility. I wanted to be coordinator, run game coordinator, something, assistant head coach. I just wasn't content with being just the offensive line coach. I was ready to go. I wasn't one of these young whippersnappers that are 22 years old and want to be an offensive coordinator. I'd done it for 6 or 7 years, and had some experience, and thought I was a pretty good coach. And so there just what it kind of came a dead end at North Cobb. And at the time, Coach Cook at Kell, which was, I lived about 10 minutes from North Cobb, and I lived about 10 minutes from Kell. I was right between the two schools. And ironically, the middle schools split. Some went to North Cobb, some went to Kell, and some went to Sprayberry. So at the time, I had my oldest son was a sophomore at North Cobb, and I went to him and I said, "Hey, I got contacted by Kell's head coach about coming over there and coaching. Would you consider transferring with me, or do you want to stay at North Cobb?" He said, "Oh, heck no, Dad. A bunch of my buddies I went to middle school with who I still talk to go to Kell. I'd love to go over there. Let's go." So that was the final straw of me going over to work for Coach Cook at Kell is leaving in 16 and going over there to Kell as he and it's titles, whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to advance. I wanted to have more responsibility, and So Coach Cook gave me the assistant head coaching job, and I got to do a whole bunch of stuff for him, um, and learn from him, which was extremely helpful in my career.
So how long were you with him at Kell?
Coach Cook, he left Kell after the first year for some other situations that went on. So I only got to learn from him for 1 year. And that gets into a whole nother story about, me wanting to be a head coach, only having, 1 year of experience, but in that 1 year did a whole lot. It was almost like fast forward learning in that aspect. And I had a lot of people pulling for me to get that head coaching job at Kell. Um, and went through the whole dog and pony show of a 12-person panel,
Yeah, yeah.
that type of stuff. And you know uh they if some of them lied to me, I still had let me put it to you like this: if four of them lied to me and said they didn't vote for me to get it, I still should have gotten it on numbers wise. So that's even if four of them lied to me. But I should have gotten that job. It was I just should have gotten it, and I'll leave it at that. I had some very interesting conversation with the AD at the time, and you know, be honest with you, he agreed as well. So I'll just leave it at that. Kind of disappointed and irritated, and with the whole deal of not getting it. They brought in a quarterback coach from Walton to be the head coach, and so worked for him for a few years. And in the meantime, I had gone in and put my name in for several other jobs. I'd put my name in for Kennesaw Mountain. I'd put my name in for Creekview, and got down literally just like Kell, got down to the final two. There was only two of us left at all of those jobs, and I didn't get any of them. I didn't get Kennesaw Mountain, and I had some contacts there. I didn't get Creekview. I had some very good contacts there. Um, so after getting second place, several times, I just told myself, quit looking, quit. It's like trying to go, find a girlfriend rather than just letting it happen. It was one of those things that I'd stressed about and worried about and couldn't do anything about it. Like I had great opportunities to get all three of those jobs, and I didn't get it. Was it something I was doing? And I just thought, I sat back and realized that God had a plan for me. What that was, I don't know. So I stopped putting my name in for stuff. Like Hillgrove was open at the time. I think Phil Ironside had just left to go to Worth or whatnot. But a lot of things happened during that time where it's just like I'm not doing that. I'm when a job opens up and it's meant for me, then I'll go for it and do it. And I'll be danged if I didn't get a call from Bobby Hughes, and I had just coached against him for a few years at Kell. They were all that was the time where Cass and Kell and Carrollton and Rome, we were all in that same region with Hiram, I think, and we had some good battles in that region. And I had become friends with Coach Hughes just in coaching, just mutual respect, as he was the head coach at Cass. And he said, "Hey, I'm stepping down as the head coach here. I'm going to take over more of a administrative role as the athletic coordinator, and I'm just seeing if there'd be any chance you would even consider talking to us about coming up here and being our head coach." And literally, like all the weight, I hadn't even interviewed for the job. I hadn't even talked to the principal yet, but all the weight off of my shoulders was gone. I knew at that phone call I was going to be the next head football coach at Cass. That's the plan that God had for me. And it, of course, I go through the whole process and and interview with the principal and the panel and Dr. Moore, the AD, and go through all that stuff. And I got the job. So that's kind of how I became a head coach with that, you know, uh, whatever you want to call it, 10-year stretch of being a position coach and coordinator at Kell, and then getting the head job here in 2020.
Man, that's awesome. I think it goes without saying that, you're where you're supposed to be, regardless of where that is and when that is. And, it's God's time, not our time. And I also think that, that preparation of going through the interview process helps you, because you just get better. It's like anything else. You get better at the interview process. You kind of.
And failing, Chris, and failing.
Oh, yeah. And 12-person
you got to learn
panels.
how to fail.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's what's wrong with kids today is they're not allowed to fail. It's okay. It's okay to fail.
They got a crutch. Yep.
And you're going to fail. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, it's part of being a man. I mean, that's part of it. It's how you going to deal with that failure and move forward. And learning the interview process, I think, is very important too, especially in the coaching universe, because it's so different from a regular job.
Yes.
The process is not like going to get a job anywhere else.
Yep.
And
no, there's so many. I don't want to use the word politics. In a lot of cases, there is politics, but just the strings that have to be pulled. And I hear so many guys nowadays even talk about this whole interview process of, well, I know the assistant principal, or I know this guy, or I know this booster club. And I'm like, buddy, that doesn't mean a hill of beans. You got to know the person that pulls the string, that actually hires and fires. That's all that matters in this deal. And if you don't impress him or her, then it doesn't matter who you know.
Correct.
So because there's other guys out there that know people too, and or are just a better candidate than you are.
Right. And I tell people that all the time, because I try to help people when, with jobs or have in the past. And I'm like, look, guys, I can probably get you an interview. I can get your foot in the door. But after that, I can't. I'm not the one hiring.
Right.
I can tell you who is making the decision.
Yep.
Or I can tell you how to figure out who's making the decision. But ultimately, and then, a lot of things with that setup too is I get irritated with it because people want me to do the legwork for them. They're like, well, how many people are on the panel? How many people are doing? I'm like, hey man, you can find all that stuff out. I am a teacher and a coach, and I do have a family, and I got a job to do myself. I ain't got time to do all that. I'm not trying to get the head coaching job at Ookie Bookie High School. You the one that wants to be the head coach of the Ookie Bookie Poot Heads, not me. You go figure all that stuff out. And I mean, I know how the process works, and I probably would know who's the shot caller. But you're exactly right. If you don't know who he or she is, that's the actual one. I call it the dog. Who the dog is in the room.
Yeah, because what happens is, you get the calls too. Is I hear it all the time of, I know this person, or so and so from Kabuki High School called me and wants me to put my name in for this job. Okay, well, that person that calls you, I don't want to disrespect them and say they're irrelevant, but we'll have zero input on who hires and fires this job. So if it's stroking your ego that Kabuki, treasurer on their booster club wants you to put your name in for this job, great. Then go put your name in for this job.
Or if you want to get practice for interviews.
Yes.
But at least go in with a modicum of, your expectations, temper your expectations.
Yes. But because they know the treasurer on the booster club, they think that they're going to have the big in on this job and go get it, and so it's, but again, failing those 3 or 4 times. There was another one, maybe North Paulding. I got 3rd or 4th when they brought the guy in from North Carolina, I think. So again, there was 3 or 4, maybe even 5 that I was in the top 3 or 4 or 5 candidates, final interview, final process, and absolutely failed. So a lot of long sleepless nights at the Gates household, and again, that's why I came to that conclusion of quit chasing, quit trying to make this thing happen. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. You just continue to learn and do what and again, I learned that 1 year with Coach Cook, he's now the head coach at Osborne, and he'll do a great job there. I learned more in that 1 year than I've learned a lot in my life. He taught me a whole bunch in a short amount of time. Again, I learned a lot from Coach Queen, obviously, and whatnot. But that's kind of how I came to Cass.
So when you get to Cass and you sit down and you're going to build your program there, what did you sit down and decide you wanted to do first? What's your program philosophy? I'm interviewing you for the job. Coach Gates, what's your philosophy? How are you going to build this program? Go.
Well, oddly enough, two things. One, I got the job in February of 20, right when COVID started. Literally the week that COVID started, I got my job. So
congratulations.
All my dreams, dreams, hopes, and admirations of doing this and having this and doing that. When I become a head coach, were gone. Nothing, zero.
Readjust.
Yes. Meeting with my teams, the team in groups of 15 every hour on a Saturday, because you couldn't have sit down with, the whole deal. So the other ironic thing is, again, I got the job in February, and 4.5 months earlier, I had just beaten Cass 67-0 on their home field at Kell. So kind of that ironic situation of kind of putting it on them a little bit, and that was always kind of my thought process of I didn't want to go try to maintain an 11-12 win team and have that type of pressure, if you want to call it. I would rather go start from the bottom and try to build something all the way up. That was always my goal in this. Hence the Kennesaw Mountain situation, Creekview, kind of going for jobs that weren't, and I mentioned it earlier, I didn't put my name in for Hillgrove because Ironside had done such a great job there that was maintaining a 10, 11, 12 win season. I wanted to go build something. And so that was and of course with COVID, it was tough to build. It was everything that I had learned and thought and wanted to do, I couldn't do per the government. And so it was, but nobody else. The other 462 head coaches in the state of Georgia couldn't do it either. Nobody knew how to handle this because it never had happened before. So I felt like I was on an even playing field of how to get the season going, even though being a new first-year head coach, of literally everybody was on the same playing rules as far as practices, how many meetings we could have with the kids, that type of stuff. So I felt good with that. And I just wanted to build an environment, as I previously have explained to you. I was fortunate enough to play a year of Texas football. I was fortunate enough to play at McEachern for two of the legends in all of for sure, Georgia, with Dorsey and Coach Herron. And then obviously playing in the SEC at Georgia. I wanted my kids at Cass to have the best experience that they could possibly have. Stuff they'll talk about for the next 50 years of their life. So that was my goal. People talk about building a culture, and that's a cliche. You can talk about that. I based it off of expectations and experiences. My expectations are going to be extremely high, something that Cass has never experienced before. And that's no disrespect to the previous head coaches there, but my expectations were going to be higher than anybody else that had ever been there. I don't know them, but that's just the way I think and my thought process. And from the weight room to the hallways to the classroom to the way they greet people to the way they stand in line, the pleases and thank yous, it was from top to bottom. The expectations were going to be as high as they could possibly be for these young men. And that's kind of how I based it off of. And we started, I took over for Coach Hughes, and he had, and I'll get to more of this in a minute, but his schedule, where I had been at North Cobb and Kell with North Cobb and Coach Queen, obviously he'll play North Gwinnett and Milton, and it doesn't matter. Coach Queen had taught me to play the best competition you can play outside of your region. So you, one, prepare yourself for your region, and two, prepare yourself for playoff teams. I'd always had that in the back of my mind. And at Kell, we had Carrollton and Rome and whoever else. So we always had a tough schedule. But Cass, we started my first year here. They had gone, I don't know what they'd gone the previous years, 3-7, 4-6, and the previous year 1-9, maybe an 0-10 in there. So they just weren't very successful. And we jump out to a 5-0 start, Chris. We beat people that Cass normally hasn't beaten before, and we start out 5-0, and everybody and their brother was praising Cass football and our staff and what we had done. And I'm sitting back at night thinking, holy smokes, when we hit this region, we are in trouble, because the 5-0 record we got was not against very playoff type of teams, tough region type of teams. And I knew that, but what am I supposed to do? Say, okay, these were lucky wins. They were who were on our schedule, and we played them and we beat them, and we're 5-0, and this is great. But we're not. We just didn't prepare ourselves for what we're about to face in region, knowing what the caliber of teams in our region were. Well, fortunately I was dead right. Dead right. We line up across from Cartersville in our thing, maybe our first region game, and they put 50 on us like it was nobody's business. Granted, they had all their move-ins with Carlos Del Rio and whoever else was moving in during the season to bolster their roster. But regardless, Coach Foster's team without Del Rio would have put 50 on us. He has a machine over there. But anyway, getting back to it, we get in the region and we start getting mollywomped game after game after game, and don't even make the playoffs. I think we ended up going 6-4, so we went 1-4 in region, and didn't make the playoffs. And that was a stamp on my thought process of playing what did Coach Queen had taught me, and those type of things. Fortunately, it was the time to recycle. The 2-year home and away cycle. And so I didn't care. Obviously, other schools out there are chomping at the bit to play Cass because they hadn't been very good. So, yeah, let's go get Cass. Let's go get a win. Let's go get Cass. I'm thinking the same thing on the flip side of it of, I want to play the toughest non-region schedule I can play. Let's go get the hardest teams. And so that's what we did. My thought process has been and will always be, I never want to go 10-1. To me, that's a failed season. If you go 10-1, that's a failed season. One is you didn't schedule hard enough non-region games, and your region obviously was what it was. But then if you're going to lose in the first round, you did not prepare yourself for that type of football. It's a different type of football. Fortunately, that one season, my first year at Cass, is the only time in my entire career I've never been in the playoffs. I know what it is like to play in the playoffs. I've traveled to Camden County to play Coach Herron. I've been to Northside Warner Robins. I've been to North Gwinnett. You name it, I've been there and played off and coached in playoff games. And I knew we weren't preparing ourselves with that schedule to play playoff teams. So if I go 6-4, 7-3, and we're a 2, 3, 4 seed, and we prepared ourselves for that week 11, then I'm good. I'm good with that. And that's what we've done. That's just what we've done. Cass has been, here's a little stat for you. Cass has been to the playoffs 7 times in 80 years of the school history. 7 times in 80 years. 4 of those 7 times are the last 4 years. So somebody's doing something right. Somebody's got a little formula that works. And as anybody in the state of Georgia knows, our region is a gauntlet. It's when you start talking about the Cartersvilles and Calhouns and Hirams and Daltons of the world, you're not playing any patsies. So it's and to be able to make the playoffs 4 straight years has been an accomplishment that I'm extremely proud of for our kids and our staff and our school.
Well, how did spring go this year?
Spring went great. No injuries. I've actually gone through spring before where I've had a starter break his leg. I've had a couple other injuries, and so last year I actually went away from a spring game and just did like a blue white game at home and stuff, and that was terrible. That was terrible. To keep the kids motivated for those 9 days leading up to that was tough on the staff. The kids didn't like it. They wanted to go play somebody. So we switched it, and Van Spence at East Paulding's a good friend of mine, and you got to trust who you play in these scrimmages. You don't want to go out there and play with some, Jimmy Gung Ho, Tommy Tough guy, and that's going to want to go kill quarterbacks and all that in May. So Coach Spence and I have known each other a long, long time, and we agreed to play a spring game, and we played it last week or 2 weeks ago now, and it went great. His teams are extremely well coached, and that's what I wanted to see. We wanted to see he's got a good young quarterback, and we've got a pretty good quarterback. So it was kind of a little show for them, and see what some of the younger kids could do. The older kids only played a half, and then we let the other guys come in and get it done. But got out there with no injuries, which was the number one goal, and learned a little bit about some of the other players that we needed to find some stuff out about.
Awesome. Now, when we talked off air about your June schedule, you said you've gone to the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday model. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we've always done June Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and kind of gave them that Tuesday and Friday off type of deal in June. And I preach what I say, or I do what I preach. I had gone to Coach Queen. Matter of fact, we played North Cobb. Does Cass High School have any business playing North Cobb? No, we don't. But I play them. They're very good, very physical. And so I'd asked him. I said, "Hey, what are you doing in the summers now?" And he said that they several years ago that they went to that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday model. And I'd asked him, have you seen a drop off in progress and maxes or anything like that? And he said, no, it's actually kind of flipped a little bit. It's numbers are really good and numbers are high and they're getting higher. So, because what that does is it gives families in the summer those 4.5, 5 days from Thursday afternoon all the way to Monday night to go on to some vacations and whatnot, and not miss a whole lot of time. So we just cranked that up this week, and it's so far so good. I love it. I may have a different opinion in a few weeks, but right now that's what we're going with in June, and we'll go back to 4 days in July after the 4th of July break. Dead week, we'll go back to Monday through Thursday. We always do that. So,
yeah, I talked to some of the younger head coaches, and I kind of pick at them a little bit, but I'm really not. I'm like, man, because I'm at the end of my career. I'm in the twilight, and I'm like, guys, this is something y'all are going to have to deal with, is coming to grips with the GHSA and the scheduling of playing a football game the first week of August is a problem. Because I sound like old man yelling at the clouds, but back in the old days.
Yep.
Back in the old days, June wasn't critical. Now, when you came back from the 4th of July, all this playing around and going to play other sports and going on vacation, that had to come to a stop, because we playing a game the weekend after Labor Day.
Yep.
We got to get ready. Well, now, because we have to play games the first week in August, good Lord, and then we complain about heat, and we worry about this, and we worry about that, and I'm like, well, we can fix that. We got 2 dead weeks during the season. Just have one. We take 4 teams to the playoffs. Go back to the old way. Take 2. Everybody can't have a trophy. Everybody can't win the region. Everybody can't be in the playoffs. You can back the season up. You can do what you want to do. And, and move where we play the championship game, and don't let them dictate our schedule. That's not what we do. Look, man, I was born at night. It wasn't last night. And we all know how it works.
Yep.
But
no.
But
yeah,
I'm liking the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday idea, though, just from a simple fact that it allows kids to be kids, families to be families, and you keep the main thing in June.
Yep. That's exactly I may have said that exact same quote in our parent meeting in April when I explained to him that's what we were doing. So yeah, no, it's tough. Even what 7, 8 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, I remember at Kell we had 10 weeks of summer because that's how we judged if the young kids, if because the summer's quote are not mandatory according to GHSA. So, but our thing at Kell was to play in the Corky Kell game in the dome, you had to make 90% of the workouts. So you had to be there 9 out of the 10 weeks. So if your family wanted a vacation, go on vacation. So I'll always remember that. Well, if you look at the summer now, there's 7 weeks. Like there's the 4 weeks here in June, and then the dead week. And when we come back from 4th of July break, it's 3 weeks left in July, and then pads are on. So it's shortened that much up with these dead weeks in June and July that there is no 10 weeks of summer practice. It's down to 7, and you got to get ready or you're going to be behind. And the big thing is obviously with the games as you mentioned in early August now is the heat and uh, we actually do personnel based off of early season and late season. Like we got guys that we know for a fact come region are going to be playing both sides of the ball, but they will not touch the other side of the ball the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season when it's too hot. Because it is, you like you said, you play a game on August 8th or August 15th, it's absolutely scorching out there, and the kids die literally. I hate to say that, but it's if you're not careful with it and do the right things, then unfortunate things happen. So,
Well, what are some things about the modern game that's so much different from when we played or you played that, and when you first got into this 15 years ago that have changed, good, bad, or indifferent? That things that you worry about or not necessarily worry about, but you might just not care for, or things that come to the forefront that as a head coach you have to worry about that you didn't really think about it when you were the O-line coach.
probably I'd say the elephant in the room is probably just the whole recruiting thing with the high school kids and their opportunities being diminished with all the NCAA rules coming down of going down to 105 rosters and all those 20 to 40 walk-ons on all these college campuses that no longer have spots. Well, those the whole trickle down effect. All those walk-ons will now go play FCS or D2, D3 ball, and all of a sudden, well, that just takes away from those high school kids that were going to be a Division II player. Now they're bumped back to maybe NAI or Division III, and now they don't have spots because it's trickled down. And then we got a handful of kids that 6 years ago would have been playing Division II football that are sitting there working at Amazon. So that's probably the biggest thing that's frustrating right now in our game is the transfer portal at the level, because we're just now starting to feel the effects of it. I had a 4-year starter for me 2 years ago that had 6 or 7 G5 offers, good offers, App State, there's some real good offers. And every single one of them told me when it came, time to make decisions that, Coach, we took a 21-year-old linebacker from San Jose State. I apologize. We can't take, your player anymore. Oh, really? And then, 2 days later, another coach calls me. And so that kid that would have gone on to play G5 football ended up at a great Division II program in Findlay up in Ohio, and he is absolutely thriving and killing it right now. So where is that young man going to end up? I have no idea. Maybe he stays at Findlay all 4 years and does great, or maybe he gets himself in the portal. But I would say that's probably the biggest, I don't want to call it a disappointment or whatnot, but just frustrating part of our game is that we are now in high school seeing the consequences of their decisions that they're making at that level. Maybe the positive thing is the flip side of that is all the NIL stuff, and what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when all the states were saying that high school kids could make NIL money, and you see all these freaking kids online posting all NIL inquiries. Call my dad or call my agent, which is his dad, and all thinking that all these 15, 16-year-olds were going to start getting paid thousands and thousands of dollars to play high school football. Obviously, that was a big flop. That was never the intent of it. But these kids thought that's what was going to happen with it, and that did not happen at all. But the NIL opportunity for these young men that do everything right and will get paid in college is pretty impressive. It's envious having played at that level before, and worrying about a family paying for your dinner over at a restaurant in Athens, and worrying about getting in trouble and $100 handshakes and those things that you worry about getting in trouble on nowadays is nothing. They don't even have time to think about that type of stuff. So it's pretty impressive seeing some of these kids that are getting these opportunities, even the kids that aren't going to play big time college football. Even the G5s, the FCSs, and even some smaller schools. They're not getting the big NIL money, but the collectives are giving them a chunk of money a month to help on income and whatnot, because they are generating revenue for the school. So I have no problem whatsoever these kids making NIL money. Is it excessive in some cases? Sure it is. Just like in any job in life, or you're going to disagree with some things that happen, but overall, I'm a big proponent of these kids making some extra money in college. So it's that part of it's exciting in the recruiting side of things. And with the talent that we've had come through Cass recently and currently right now, and I got a couple more coming, and I got a couple young kids. I got a really talented rising ninth grader quarterback. I got a very good rising 10th grader receiver. So I've got some good kids. So it's not going to stop, but that takes up a lot of your time as a head coach. If you do it right, if you don't give a crap about it and think it's just going to happen, then you're wrong. You got to put a lot of time in there. A lot of late night phone calls with coaches and GAs and recruiting analysts and those type of things at these schools to talk about your kids, and which goes back to the biggest thing. When you told me about this podcast, I was like, I want a key word, and I haven't even said it yet. I don't even know how long I've been yapping, but relationships is so big in this industry. We talked a little bit about it, but it's the relationships that you develop with these colleges and their coaching staff is extremely crucial in this whole process. And I've learned that the good way and the hard way, because I do get blunt answers back because I have a relationship with a certain coach, just like I mentioned you about that young man who, that coach just flat out called me and said, "Coach, we're not taking him. We're taking a 21-year-old out of, Texas." Oh, okay. Well, thanks, John. Appreciate you being honest with me, type of thing. So that's just the relationships you build with these guys, and they're brutally honest, and that helps in a lot of aspects. But that's kind of where we are.
Well, one of the things that I've enjoyed in our conversation is you hitting the nail on the head about providing a good experience, and I think that's one of our biggest jobs that we have as high school coaches. Whether you're the head coach or you're the position coach, whether you're coaching varsity or coaching middle school, is making sure they have a good experience so that when they're 50 years old and 60 years old and they look back and sit around with their buddies, and they may stretch the story, may get a little bit bigger. They might have ran a little bit further. They might have blocked a bigger guy than he actually was. But it's a good experience, and it's obvious that you're providing great experiences for the kids at Cass. And I just appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights and sharing your philosophies and how you go about your business at Cass and your journey to get there with us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, it was when you scheduled this literally a couple months ago. It was something I look forward to, and like you said, we all have stories, and if I had one last thing to say out of this, would be what we talked about earlier: is just you can't be afraid to fail. Life's failing. There's going to be times for you young coaches, aspiring coaches, you're not going to be able to pay your rent one time, or your house note, or your car note, or your relationships will struggle in life with your wife and whatnot. And that, you got to learn to deal with failure. And I did in that short amount of time, those couple of years there when I got second place. And again, it made me a better person. It made me a better man, a better coach, better dad. And obviously, God had a plan for me, and God willing, I'll be at Cass until I retire. So that's my plan. I have no plans to go anywhere. I love it there.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being on with us, Coach.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.